Welcome to the Scholar's Chair. Tonight, the philosophy of David Hume, a treatise in human nature. As our guide, Professor, Chair, Department of Philosophy at Prince George's Community College, Dr. Clyde Ebenreck. At Focus, the meaning of philosophy and its benefits to you and your future.
Hit it!
Before that time.
The physics behind, for example,
another
reactions.
people say
The actual change of
under
mass.
the ultimate question about
During
their
father's course of 7 years,
ethics and
the book was put together.
Clyde Ebenreck, welcome to the Scholar's Chair.
Hey, thank you.
It's good to see you here, Dr. Ebenreck. The first question to you is, who is David Hume?
David Hume. He wondered that question himself. Who was David Hume? But he was a Scotsman, born 1711, died 1776, just as we were creating our own revolution over here.
Yes.
He was a friend of Benjamin Franklin, a friend of Adam Smith, a friend of Rousseau. He was also the most logical and extreme of the British empiricists. The empiricists made the claim. Started with, at one level, it started with René Descartes, then went to George Berkeley and John Locke, that what you get through your senses is the only thing that counts for knowledge.
Did David agree with this?
Did David Hume?
David Hume agree?
David Hume not only agreed, but took it to an extreme. If you take a look at David Hume's own career, our own life, he began at the university when he was about 14. Actually, no, excuse me. He graduated from the university when he was about 14. He wrote this major book, The Treatise of Human Nature, by the time he was 26.
Age of 26, wow.
And for him, philosophy not only made sense, it was the only thing that made sense, except for all the other philosophers. He's considered to have used a wrecking ball to knock down previous structures in philosophy, in the way of thinking, to clear the ground so that correct ideas or thoughts or truths
Is he
could be
opening the
claimed.
way for science as well? Just curious.
The first opening to science, probably began with Aristotle many centuries earlier.
Okay.
And although Hume found René Descartes' division between spirit and matter to be very unwieldy and very difficult, it was that split that Descartes made that allows what we call modern science to happen.
Okay. All right.
That Descartes, by dividing the human into a soul, spirit, mind that was immaterial, and a body that was very physical, tangible, you could get a hold of it, was creating a space where science could look then at what we can get a hold of. They didn't have to worry about soul, spirit, psyche. Other people could take care of that. The scientists could do their investigation. And actually, shortly after Hume, you have a large group of people in Britain who are very interested in doing empirical research.
But now, do me a favor. Let's get a clear definition on empiricism.
Okay.
And what it means.
That an empiricist says, if I'm going to get any information at all about really anything, I'm only can get it through my senses. what I can see, taste, touch, smell. This is my database. And the empiricist says, and we need nothing else. And so your whole field of contemporary research in psychology and cognitive science, they're looking at what do the neurons do. Although there are some interesting moves there, but they want to know just actually maybe the FBI, just the facts.
Right, just the facts, right.
But
this is in contradiction to or just opposed to mysticism and those things that are received mystically, I guess.
Well, more than the mystic would be one of the problems for the empiricist,
Okay.
although the mystic actually is dealing with a direct experience, but it's not available to others.
Okay.
Where the empiricist stands in most conflict is with people like Plato,
Okay.
who said the truth of this physical world around us depends upon a truth in some higher world, in some higher realm, his world of ideas, so that there is the real justice, the real truth, the real beauty, the real good is away from this material stuff. And claiming then to know about everything merely because you had the ideas. And this is what the empiricist rejects. The idea by itself, without empirical data, is useless.
Okay. Because you can't organize it and you can't teach it. I mean, I would think if you're just having a personal mystical experience.
I would actually, though, probably people like Plato had some kind of mystical experience. Certainly, later Platonists were mystics, but inherent in the objection to mysticism was nobody else could share it.
Okay.
Whereas the empiricist could say, this is a book, this is a cup. We can all touch, feel the same thing. And that gave them some room for then saying there is a shared knowledge without having to appeal to having had some encounter before you were born with the perfect ideas of Plato, or having some innate idea, as Descartes would say, that having stuff already in you is what the empiricist really wants to challenge.
Interesting. So I want to run this past you because it just strikes me really interesting to possibly have seen the two things happen. If someone came up to Hume's and said, Hume's, I had a revelation from God, how would Hume's react to that?
Well, Hume was a friendly person. He was mild-mannered.
He would say, have a drink and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, but he would also say, you've got a couple of choices when you have a revelation. You can believe it came from some being outside of our realm. You can believe it came from within yourself, that you invented it. Maybe you were having a little bit too much to drink before we got to talk here.
Right.
Or perhaps you are simply mistaken.
Okay.
And Hume believed being simply mistaken was highly more probable than that some external being spoke to you, or that your imagination had crafted this narrative that way.
Then it's interesting. I would think that he would have said, show me the evidence, because that would be in line with the empirical
Well,
thought.
the empiricist would say there's evidence, but Hume would say that it's already impossible to get evidence for a person's personal experience, for their own inner experience. Like, I am seeing you, but you are not seeing you.
Right.
And so you tell me this is who you are, and I'm having to fit that into my experience of you. And I have no reason to doubt, but Hume would say the doubt is always possible. You may be deceived. You may not be hearing properly, like sometimes I do. I don't quite hear right.
Sure. The senses may fail you, essentially.
Your senses can fail you, but they're the only thing you have.
Okay. Right.
And, you know, in Hume, my students roll their eyes on this one. Hume took a look at what do we know about, you know, his treatise on human nature. What do we know about humans? And one of the things he claimed we knew was there is no self. That you've simply put together some memories and you say, this is me. Then you go to sleep. You got to wake up and reconstruct them again. And they're going to be different memories.
And well, I would think the idea is that the self is not concretized. It's not a...
You have no impression of self.
Gotcha.
That is, there is no physical data that says self.
Right. I'm yourself.
You have, I look this way. When I look in the mirror, it still looks like me. The beard needs maybe a little trimming, whatever. But all of that sense data doesn't have, this is Clyde.
Interesting. But your beard looks fine, Clyde. Question. Why do we study Hume's in all the major universities? Why is it such a subject matter in philosophy?
The first, Hume was a tremendous corrective against the pure rationalists who were saying, I don't even need to touch the world. I can just figure everything out on my rational, logical level, and that's sufficient. And Hume is also studied extensively in a couple of areas, the field of ethics or morality, because for Hume, if you were claiming something was morally right, all you were stating is, I like it. It's my preference.
Right.
And in fields of aesthetics and art, Hume would say, obviously you like it, and so you're calling it beautiful, but there's nothing objective about beauty or objective about morality. And so...
Are you saying that morality and ethics are subjective
Hume
philosophy?
would say.
Okay.
Hume would say.
Okay.
And you find many of the contemporary Anglo-American philosophers who would be in that same camp. The analytic school of philosophy would say, yeah, you're just stating a preference. You would prefer to have world peace, and our economists would prefer to have world war because we can make more money that way.
Yes.
And it's just a preference. There is no reason that can demand that you choose peace over war.
Well, certainly peace is more preferable. And
Well,
that's the
many
point you're
people
making.
would prefer it, yes.
Right.
But the many people for Hume are working at a level of, call it intuition, at a level of instinct. He calls it animal sentiment. We simply don't like to see other people suffer. And so that's why we would do it. But if that animal instinct is not there, okay, so they suffer. And we've had years upon years of dictatorships where clearly the dictator says, well, they suffer, but so. You know, it's for the good of the country, it's for the good of the nation. The killing fields in Cambodia was all for the sake eventually of the nation. Or even in our own political structure, well, some of the poor have to be deprived of some of their benefits because we need to have the economy growing.
So this is the empirical approach.
This would be the empirical, well, the preference approach is what's there. It's the empirical would be a step above preference. Is there any data, not even data, is there any impression that you could assemble here that would guide, say, an economy or a political set of decisions?
But that word directs me to that expression, and this will give you an opportunity to expound on that idea of impressions. Hume says that all ideas are copied from our impressions.
Okay, two things need to be unpacked there.
Good, good.
The copying part is our memory.
Okay.
That all of the impressions you have of me, I have of you, of this room, of anything, first have been received through my senses. And then a recollection happens, a memory, you know, they're stored somewhere, short-term memory, long-term memory, in between, mixed up memory, whatever. But as they go into memory, they become fainter than the impression. And the longer term, further back, more distant memories become even fainter yet. But these distant memories, these vague memories, are what he calls ideas. The idea doesn't have the vibrancy, doesn't have the immediacy of an impression. It is remote from that. And Hume will then say, and you can talk about ideas, but they're not on the basis of the impression.
I see.
You are going to make more mistakes. You are going to misalign the ideas. And
So impressions is the immediate experience.
is the immediate experience. Once the immediate experience stops,
Okay.
you have no impressions of that. When you go to sleep, there's no impressions.
So you start utilizing your memory in terms of evaluating the world from there on out. I would surmise.
Yes, and this is actually crucial to Hume for two reasons. For what I consider at least some of Hume's major breakthroughs. One, we've already talked about the morality and how this is a subjective framework. It's merely a preference, and that no amount of empirical data can demand that you prefer one over the other. It can't force you. You will simply go with your impressions. The other side of it, Hume both made modern science possible and destroyed science simultaneously with the same action. He was concerned because language of causality was constantly being used by the philosophers wanting to defend the idea of a God.
So cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Right.
And also, you know, it seemed to be absolutely intuitive on part of many people. Well, nothing happens without a cause.
Right, right.
And he says, well, what are we talking about here? And he says, so take a look. And he talks about an object and, you know, pick it up, move it around, look at all angles. Can you find cause anywhere there? He says, what we interpret as cause is two events happen at the same time. They're simultaneous in time, and they're in absolute physical contact. He would not understand modern physics.
Right, that's true.
But and the image is the pool ball or cue ball hitting,
Right, this is
bouncing. But he says, and it's natural that we say one caused the other. But be careful, because a cause has to do it always. It isn't a cause if it doesn't always happen.
There's no way to prove that.
there's no way to know the future.
Right.
And so he will say, okay, because the sun rose every morning,
Right.
it doesn't mean it's going to rise tomorrow.
Right.
Now, I think the physicists and astrophysicists would say, and if it doesn't, boy, are we going to know it.
It's going to be news.
But inherent in Hume's view,
Yeah.
our impressions can only give us the now. This is our impression now. And we never have an impression of cause. We have an impression, sequence,
Of the experience, yeah.
but we don't know cause. And this first gave some space to science to work, that they could accept a probable sequence. It's happened this way before, it's likely to happen again. Here are the levels of probability. Now, we've worked out today a much more sophisticated system of probabilities than Hume may have had. But yeah, he says we're naturally inclined to do it that way, but we never can guarantee it. And modern science, a good scientist today would say, all we can do is build a hypothesis from a theory, build a hypothesis, test it. But even if every single time we run the test we get the same result, if tomorrow we get a different result, throw the hypothesis out.
Different conclusion.
Different conclusion.
Yes.
We have a very high probabilities.
Interesting. I like just the clarity of that. I think it does bring. I think it is a modern idea. Hume wrote that there is no single phenomenon, even in the most simple, which he can account for the qualities of the objects as they appear to us, or which we could foresee before the help of our memory and experience. And I think that we cannot evaluate this world without the assistance of our memory and experience. Would you agree? Is this part of his philosophy, first of all, and does it fit into his overall idea that's expressed in the treatise?
Oh, very clearly.
Yeah.
That what he is claiming in the treatise, but throughout everything that he wrote, is that our sense data, you've got to be very, very clear about what you've got. You are a person, there's no person sensation coming through here. I have sensation of color, of sound. I can hear you, I can see you, I can see that you're smiling, but can I infer from that you're happy or pleased or are a person or even are a human responding to me?
Sure.
All of those are extra things that we do by interpretation from past memory. Well, every other time I've encountered a being who did this, turned out to be a human being in some way or another. So I'm inferring, making an inference.
Yes.
I'm not getting it from the sensation itself. And so the idea, I can experience color. Well, no, I can experience red. I don't experience color. I can experience tone. Or words. I don't experience hearing.
We don't know what it means to be red or
right.
This is an interesting idea. Now, we just went through an election, right? And we had several different views of what economic justice was, right? So one was, and I'm trying to get to the preference idea, because I think that there are some guiding laws that govern economics that I think is sometimes difficult to accept, right? I mean, that we have to accept. I'm sorry, but there are some ideas about the interpretation of these laws that are very challenging, like the wealth should go to the fittest, and the person who's able to accumulate it all,
Right.
and that's the person who legitimately owns it, right? So I was just curious, would Hume's remove natural law? Would he negate it?
The quick answer is yes.
Okay, he would negate it.
Because he would say that law is at best a relationship of ideas that you have in your mind. There's nothing out there that is a law, as far as you know.
Right, right.
All that you get is impression.
But isn't economics a science?
Interestingly, Adam Smith, the founder of the
That's right. Yes,
was
go ahead.
a friend of Hume,
Yes.
and claims actually gives credit to Hume for waking him up to pay attention to the empirical data that goes. But obviously, Smith had many other theories of supply and demand. Now, if supply and demand is simply describing what has been perceived, Hume could accept that. If you're saying there is a law about it, Smith's hidden hand of the market, Hume would say.
So the right expression of it would be perhaps economic theory versus.
Okay, Hume claims that things like logic, mathematics, are purely arranging ideas. They are not about the real world. And so he would oppose theory in general. That, in fact, I'm thinking back to the election, not only were they talking about economic notions, but there were some who were debating the creation of the world and evolution and so forth, and labeling them theories. Hume would simply say, those things cannot tell us about what's real. They can only assemble ideas, only pull together a logic. And, it's a little bit hard for us today, I think. We're fascinated by mathematics and statistics and data crunching.
Well, Hume does mention that the mathematics and algebra, he mentioned specifically,
Right.
might be the only way to get to a certainty.
And he grants that mathematics is absolutely certain.
Right.
But it tells you nothing at all about the world.
I remember a statement written in the language of God by Francis Collins, and he said that even though, and he is the I guess the leading authority on DNA, and he wrote this idea that even if you collected a storehouse of data about DNA, he said that it would not tell you what it means to be human. And I think there's some, it might be some leeway to where Hume's is directing us in.
Hume would agree that whatever information you got by whatever analysis tool you had used, that is chemical analysis, biological analysis, would only be giving you facts, what he would call matters of fact. It would not tell you whether it is true.
It's true. We're going to have to leave it there, Clyde. This is too short. We've been talking about David Hume, and we were talking about his book, A Treatise of Human Nature. If you want to know more about the Scholars Chair, you have to go online to www.scholarschair.com, or you can go to a YouTube station and pick me up there. Or you can send me an email at scholarschair@gmail.com. I'm Khalil Shadid. Good night.
Hit it! Hit it!